I grabbed my passport from Jessica's trembling hand the second she said, "Nathan, I need to tell you something about Ryan." And before she could finish her confession, I turned toward the security checkpoint without a single word. "Wait, please, just listen," she called after me, her voice cracking in the crowded terminal. I kept walking. 5 years together, a planned 2-week vacation to Barcelona, and she chose this moment, 30 minutes before our international flight, to tell me about her ex-boyfriend. The ex-boyfriend who apparently just texted her. The ex-boyfriend she needed to see before we left. "Nathan, stop!" Jessica grabbed my arm, her manicured nails digging into my jacket. "It's not what you think. Ryan's going through something, and I just need 20 minutes to talk to him. He's in the parking garage. I'll be right back, I promise." I pulled my arm free and looked directly into her green eyes. The same eyes that had looked at me over candlelit dinners. The same eyes that had cried when I surprised her with this trip 3 months ago. "You want to leave me at the airport, with all our luggage, to go meet your ex-boyfriend?" "It's just 20 minutes. The flight doesn't board for another hour." She glanced at her phone. "He drove all the way here. It would be cruel to just ignore him." "Then go." I adjusted my carry-on strap. "But I'm not waiting." Her face went pale. "You can't be serious. Nathan, we have non-refundable tickets. We've been planning this for months." "You should have thought about that before you prioritized Ryan's feelings over our vacation." I pulled out my phone and opened my airline app. "I'll see you when I get back, or not." "You're being ridiculous!" Her voice rose, drawing stares from nearby travelers. "It's just a conversation. He's struggling, and I'm the only person he trusts enough to— To what? Be his emotional support while he tries to win you back?" I shook my head. "I'm not doing this, Jessica. Not here, not now, not ever." She switched tactics, her eyes welling with tears. "Please, baby. Don't throw away 5 years because you're being insecure. I love you. I'm just being a decent human being to someone who's in pain." A decent human being would have told her boyfriend about this before they got to the airport. A decent human being wouldn't ask me to sit here like an idiot while she runs off to comfort another man. I started walking again. "Make your choice." "Fine," she shouted, anger replacing the tears. "Fine. I'll go talk to him for 10 minutes, and you better be here when I get back. We're adults, Nathan. We can handle this maturely." I turned one last time. "If you walk away right now, we're done. Completely done. No second chances, no explanations later, no but I came back excuses. Done." She hesitated, looking between her phone and me. Her thumb hovered over the screen. Then she straightened her shoulders. "You're being controlling and insecure. Ryan deserves basic human compassion. I'll be back in 15 minutes, and we can talk about why you're acting like this." She walked away, her heels clicking on the terminal floor, pulling her small suitcase behind her. I waited exactly 30 seconds to see if she'd turn around. She didn't. I pulled out my phone and changed my ticket to a single passenger, paying the $200 fee without hesitation. Then I checked her 2 large suitcases with the airline's baggage service, arranging for them to be held at Barcelona's airport under her name. I kept my carry-on and my freedom. When I reached the security line, I texted her once. "Your bags will be in Barcelona under your name. We're done. Don't contact me again." I blocked her number before she could respond. The security agent looked at my boarding pass and driver's license with professional efficiency. As I walked through the metal detector, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders that I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying, looking. Back now, I understand that weight had been there for months, maybe longer. The nagging feeling that I was always one step away from being a secondary priority in Jessica's life. There had been signs before this. Small things I'd rationalized or ignored. The way she'd cancel our plans if certain friends called with emergencies. How she'd check her phone constantly during our date nights, always with a reasonable explanation. The time she'd disappeared for 3 hours during my birthday party because an old college friend really needed to talk. I'd been understanding, supportive, accommodating. I'd been a fool. The flight attendant welcomed me aboard with a warm smile. I settled into my window seat. Originally, we'd booked the aisle and middle seat, and accepted a complimentary glass of wine. As the plane pushed back from the gate, I felt my phone vibrate repeatedly in my pocket. I didn't check it. By the time we reached cruising altitude, I'd changed my email password, removed her from my emergency contacts, and started a list of everything in my apartment that belonged to her. The man in the aisle seat, a silver-haired businessman named Gerald, noticed my expression. "You look like a man who just made a difficult decision." The most difficult part was realizing it wasn't actually difficult, I said. He laughed. "I've been married 30 years. You know why? Because my wife and I decided on day one that we'd never make each other feel like an option. You're either the priority or you're gone. Sounds like you just figured that out. 5 years too late. Better late than never. I know men who wasted decades." He raised his plastic cup of whiskey. "To not wasting decades." I clinked my wine glass against it. "To not wasting decades." Barcelona greeted me with sunshine and the smell of the Mediterranean. I checked into our hotel, now just my hotel, and the concierge graciously changed the reservation to a single occupancy without asking questions. The room had a balcony overlooking La Rambla, and I sat there for an hour with coffee and a croissant, feeling lighter than I had in months. My phone exploded with messages once I turned off airplane mode. I glanced at them only long enough to see they were from Jessica's friends, her sister, and several unknown numbers. 43 messages in total, plus 17 missed calls. I deleted them all and changed my number at a local phone store that afternoon, keeping only my work contacts and closest friends. Before I blocked everything, I did read one message from Jessica's sister, Emily, who I'd always gotten along with. "Nathan, I don't know what happened, but Jess is hysterical. She says you abandoned her at the airport. She needs to talk to you. Please call." I responded once. Ask her why she left me standing at the airport to meet Ryan. Ask her why she thought that was acceptable. Then ask yourself if you'd accept that from your husband. I'm done, Emily. Tell her to stop contacting me. Emily wrote back. She told me about Ryan. She said it was just to talk. She said she came right back, but you were already gone. She made her choice. I made mine. Goodbye, Emily. I blocked her too. That evening, I met 2 Australian travelers at a tapas bar near the Gothic Quarter. Tom and his sister Emma were funny, adventurous, and had no interest in my backstory beyond traveling solo needed a change. We spent 3 days exploring Gaudi's architecture, getting lost in narrow medieval streets, and laughing over pitchers of sangria. On the 3rd night, Emma asked me the question I'd been avoiding. So, what's the real story? Americans don't usually do 2-week solo trips to Barcelona on a whim. I told them. The airport, the ultimatum, the choice Jessica made. Tom whistled low. Mate, you did the right thing. Absolutely the right thing. Most people think I overreacted, I admitted. Her friends certainly do. Emma shook her head firmly. Most. People are cowards who'd rather be comfortable than respected. You respected yourself enough to walk away. That takes guts. It didn't feel like guts. It felt like survival. Same thing, sometimes, Tom said. Look, my ex-girlfriend cheated on me and I took her back. You know what happened? She cheated again. And I took her back again. Third time, she didn't even apologize, just expected me to accept it. I finally left, but I wasted 2 years I'll never get back. You walked away at the first clear sign of disrespect. That's not overreacting. That's clarity. Their words settled something in me. I hadn't been cruel or impulsive. I'd been clear. They invited me to join them for the rest of their Mediterranean trip, Nice, Monaco, and the Italian coast. I said yes without hesitation. I extended my 2-week vacation to 4 weeks, using the remote work policy my company had just implemented. My boss, Richard, was surprisingly supportive when I called him. Nathan, you've been here 6 years and never taken more than a week off. Take the time. You've earned it. Just keep your phone on for emergencies. There were no emergencies. In Monaco, I met a venture capitalist named David, who was impressed by my analysis of the tech sector over dinner at a restaurant overlooking the harbor. We'd been seated at adjacent tables, and he'd overheard me explaining cryptocurrency trends to Tom and Emma. He introduced himself, bought us a round of drinks, and within an hour, we were deep in conversation about market dynamics and emerging technologies. You work in finance? He asked. Financial analysis. Tech sector focus. He handed me his card. My firm is always looking for people who can explain complex topics simply. That's rare. Call me when you're back in the States. By the time I returned home, I'd gained a tan, lost 15 pounds from the walking and swimming, made a dozen international friends, and had 3 job interviews lined up, including one with David's firm. My apartment felt foreign when I walked in. I'd been gone long enough that Jessica's absence had sunk into the walls. Her key was on the kitchen counter with a note I didn't read initially. She'd taken her things, clothes, books, the fancy coffee maker she'd insisted on. She'd left the furniture we'd bought together, the photos from our trips, and a stack of mail addressed to me. I threw the photos away first. Then I sat down and read her note. Nathan, I made a terrible mistake. I know that now. Ryan lied to me about why he needed to see me. His mother isn't sick. He just wanted to manipulate me into seeing him. I realized that 5 minutes into talking to him and ran back to the airport. But you were already through security. I tried to call, tried to text. I even asked security if they could get a message to you, but they said you'd already boarded. I flew to Barcelona the next day, but you'd already checked out of the hotel. I've been trying to reach you for weeks. Please, please call me. We can fix this. 5 years has to mean something. I love you. I'm so sorry. Please. J. I read it twice, then put it through my paper shredder. She'd turned around. She'd realized her mistake. And it changed nothing. The issue wasn't whether she'd actually talked to Ryan or for how long. The issue was that she'd prioritized his manufactured crisis over our relationship. She'd been willing to leave me standing in an airport, looking like an idiot, while she ran to comfort a man who'd manipulated her. The fact that she'd realized it was manipulation only proved my point. She'd been so eager to help him that she hadn't even questioned his story. I sold the furniture online and redecorated with a minimalist aesthetic I'd always wanted, but she'd called too cold. I adopted a dog from the local shelter, a 3-year-old German Shepherd mix named Apollo that Jessica would have refused because of her allergies. Apollo had been surrendered by a family that couldn't keep him after a divorce. The shelter volunteer told me he was loyal, protective, and needed someone who'd commit to him. I can do that, I told her. Apollo and I bonded immediately. He slept at the foot of my bed, went running with me every morning, and seemed to understand that we'd both been abandoned by people we'd trusted. We were building something new together. The job with David's firm came through 6 weeks after I returned. The interview process was intense. 3 rounds, including a panel presentation on emerging market trends. But David had championed me internally, and my analysis apparently impressed the senior partners. They offered me double my current salary, better benefits, and an office in downtown Manhattan. I gave my 2 weeks' notice immediately. Richard was disappointed but understanding. "You've been underpaid here for years. I tried to get you promoted twice, but corporate kept dragging their feet. Go make the money you deserve," or last. 2 weeks at the old firm were bittersweet. I'd made good friends there, learned valuable skills, but I'd also become comfortable. Too comfortable. Sometimes the best thing that can happen is someone forcing you to make a change you were too scared to make yourself. Jessica had forced that change. I found a corner apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. It cost more than Jessica and I had paid for our shared place, but I could afford it now. Apollo loved the nearby dog parks, and I loved walking through the neighborhood where I didn't have memories of her on every corner. 3 months after the airport, I ran into Jessica's best friend Monica at a coffee shop near my old neighborhood. I was there collecting the last of my mail forwarding. "Nathan!" She looked genuinely surprised. "Oh my God, you look amazing. Did you lose weight?" "Some. How are you, Monica?" She shifted uncomfortably. "I'm good. Listen, I know it's not my place, but Jessica's been having a really hard time. She wanted me to reach out if I ever saw you." "That's unfortunate." I added sugar to my coffee. "But not my problem. She made a mistake. She knows that now. Ryan was he told her his mom died and she panicked. She felt obligated because his mom had always been kind to her when they dated. But it was a lie. His mom is fine. He just wanted to see her. I'm sorry she fell for that, but it doesn't change anything." I headed toward the door. Monica followed. She never even talked to him. She got halfway to the parking garage and turned around. "But you were already through security. She tried to catch you, but—" "Monica, I blocked her for a reason. I don't care if she turned around. She made her choice when she walked away. What happened after doesn't interest me." She lost her job. The stress made her mess up a major presentation, and they let her go during restructuring. She's been applying everywhere, but the market's tough right now. Monica's voice took on a pleading tone. "She's really struggling. She moved back in with her parents. She talks about you constantly, about how she ruined the best thing in her life." I paused at the door, not because I felt sympathy, but because I needed Monica to understand clearly. Jessica had a choice at that airport. She chose to prioritize someone who was manipulating her over someone who loved her. That's not a mistake. That's a character reveal. What happened afterward is the consequence of her choice. "You're really not going to give her a second chance? After 5 years?" "I gave her a chance. At the airport. She didn't take it." I opened the door. "I hope she figures her life out, but it won't be with me in it." Monica's eyes welled up. "She said you'd say something like that. She said you'd become cold." I became clear. There's a difference. Take care, Monica. Monica caught the door before it closed. "Nathan, wait. You should know something else. Ryan's been posting about her on social media, calling her his one that got away. He's been texting her constantly, even though she blocked him. She had to threaten legal action. The guy is obsessed. She realizes now that he's been trying to sabotage every relationship she's had since they broke up. He did the same thing when she was dating Tyler before you. Called Tyler claiming there was an emergency, and Tyler believed her when she said nothing happened. You didn't. Because Tyler was a fool. Good for Tyler, if that worked out for him." I adjusted my bag. Jessica chose to entertain Ryan's manipulation. She chose to believe his obvious lie. She chose to leave me at an airport. Those were her choices. If Ryan is harassing her, she should call the police. But that still has nothing to do with me. Don't you care that she's suffering? I care about suffering in general. I hope she gets help if she needs it. but I'm not responsible for fixing the consequences of her decisions. She's an adult. She made adult choices. Now she's dealing with adult consequences. Monica wiped her eyes. She really loved you, you know. She still does. Love isn't just a feeling, Monica. It's a series of choices. When it mattered, she chose wrong. I softened my voice slightly. Look, I genuinely hope Jessica finds happiness. I hope she learns from this. I hope she figures out why she was so willing to drop everything for someone who was clearly manipulating her. But she needs to do that work without me. I'm not her safety net, her backup plan, or her redemption arc. I'm just someone who used to know her. I left Monica standing in the coffee shop doorway and didn't look back. That night, in my new apartment with Apollo snoring on his dog bed, I thought about what Monica had said, about Jessica suffering, about Ryan's harassment, about the job loss, and the move back home. Part of me, the part that had loved her for 5 years, felt a twinge of sympathy. But sympathy wasn't the same as responsibility. And it certainly wasn't the same as reconciliation. I'd learned something crucial at that airport. You teach people how to treat you. If I'd waited for Jessica, if I'd swallowed my feelings and gone on that trip, I would have taught her that my boundaries were negotiable, that she could prioritize other men over me, and I'd accept it as long as she came back. Some people call that forgiveness. I call it self-betrayal. I didn't see or hear from anyone in Jessica's circle after that conversation with Monica. I heard through mutual acquaintances, the kind of information that travels through social media despite best efforts, that Jessica had moved to Seattle for a fresh start, taking a job that paid significantly less than her previous position. Someone told me she'd started therapy, which I thought was genuinely good for her. Another person mentioned she'd gained weight and was struggling with depression. I felt nothing hearing this. Not satisfaction. Not pity. Just nothing. She was a chapter I'd closed, and I'd moved on to better stories. 6 months after Barcelona, I attended a tech conference in San Francisco for my new company. During a networking happy hour on the hotel's rooftop terrace, I started chatting with a software developer named Allison. She was brilliant, funny, and direct in a way I found refreshing. She asked me to dinner without pretense or games, and I said yes immediately. We talked for 4 hours about everything: work, travel, books, the absurdity of modern dating, our childhoods, our ambitions. When she asked if I'd been in serious relationships, I told her about Jessica briefly, matter-of-factly, the way you'd explain any other biographical detail. "So you just left her there?" Allison asked, sipping her wine. I gave her a clear choice. She made it. That's incredibly decisive. Most people would have waited, fought, made a scene. Most people waste years of their life hoping someone will change. I'd tell you, rather be alone than disrespected. She smiled. I like that. I like that a lot. My ex-husband used to say I was too direct and too demanding because I expected basic respect and honesty. He's my ex-husband for a reason. How long were you married? 3 years. 2 of them were good. The third, he started working late with his colleague Amanda. He swore it was innocent. Then I found texts that were decidedly not innocent. He wanted couples counseling, wanted to work through it. I wanted a divorce. Did you get pushback for that? Oh, constantly. His family thought I was being cruel. My own mother told me marriage requires compromise. I told her compromise doesn't include infidelity. She set down her wine glass. People confuse self-respect with selfishness. They're not the same thing. We dated long distance for 3 months. San Francisco to New York was manageable with our travel schedules. We'd meet in different cities for conferences, take weekend trips, videos, chat most nights. It was easy in a way my relationship with Jessica never had been. No drama, no tests, no wondering if I was important to her. Just two adults who enjoyed each other and made effort to prioritize that. Then Allison got a job offer in New York. She called me while I was walking Apollo through Central Park. "So, I have news," she said. "Remember that position I interviewed for at that startup in Brooklyn? The AI development role? They offered me lead developer, full equity package, benefits, salary bump. It's everything I wanted professionally." "Allison, that's incredible. Congratulations." There was a pause. "It would mean moving to New York." "I know. Is that okay with you?" I stopped walking. Apollo looked up at me, sensing something important. "Are you asking my permission?" "No. I'm asking if it's something you'd want. Because I want it. I want the job and I want to be in the same city as you. But I need to know you want that too." "I want that." The words came easily, naturally. "I want that very much." She moved into her own place in Brooklyn 6 weeks later. We continued seeing each other without pressure or talk of moving in together right away. We were building something at our own pace, without anyone else's timeline or expectations. A year after the airport incident, I was promoted to Director of Analysis at the firm. It came with a significant raise, a team of 5 analysts reporting to me, and a level of respect I'd never experienced at my old company. David took me to lunch to celebrate at a restaurant that required reservations months in advance. "You know why I hired you?" he asked over appetizers. "My portfolio analysis was solid?" "That too. But mainly because when I asked about your life, you told me you'd just walked away from a 5-year relationship at an airport and went to Europe instead. That showed me you could make hard decisions without looking back. That's rare." He raised his glass. 2 hard decisions and not looking back." I clinked my glass against his. "To not looking back? You know what the problem is with most people?" David continued. "They let sunk cost dictate their future. I've already invested 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, so I can't leave now. But that's exactly backward. The time you've already spent is gone. The only question that matters is, do you want to spend your future like this? Most people can't answer that honestly." I got lucky. She forced me to answer it. That wasn't luck. That was you having clear boundaries and sticking to them. Most people have boundaries until someone tests them. You didn't fold. That evening, Allison and I took Apollo for a walk through Central Park. The fall air was crisp, and the leaves were turning gold and red. She'd been quiet during dinner, and I knew something was on her mind. "I got an offer," she said finally. "Lead developer for a startup. Equity, full benefits, the works." "That's incredible. Where?" "London. 3-year contract minimum." My stomach dropped slightly, but I kept walking. "That's a huge opportunity." "It is." She stopped and turned to me. "I want you to come with me." "To London?" "The firm has a London office. I checked. They're always looking for senior people. David's firm has international placement. You could transfer, or you could take your experience and go somewhere new. Or," she took a breath, "you could say this is too fast, too much, and I'd understand. But I'm asking because I want you there. Not because I need you, but because I want to build something with someone who knows his own mind." I thought about the airport, about Jessica's face when I told her to make her choice, about the last year of my life, the freedom, the growth, the absolute clarity that came from walking away from someone who didn't value me. How much time do I have to decide? 3 weeks? Give me 1 week. She nodded, and we continued. Walking. I didn't need a week. I needed time to do it properly. To talk to David about international opportunities, to research London, to make sure I was moving toward something I wanted, not just following someone. But I also needed to sit with the decision, to make sure I was choosing Allison for the right reasons. By day 4, I'd had 3 conversations with the London office, researched neighborhoods that would be good for Apollo, and talked to my financial advisor about international tax implications. The London office was excited about the possibility of me transferring. Apparently, David had already mentioned me to his counterpart there, and they'd been hoping I'd eventually consider an international move. I called Allison on day 6. Start looking at flats for 2, and make sure they allow dogs. Apollo's coming too. She laughed, and I could hear the relief in her voice. You're sure? I'm sure. But Allison, if you ever, at any point, decide to leave me at Eindhoven airport to talk to your ex, know that I'll do the same thing I did last time. Nathan, if I ever do that, you should do the same thing. That would mean I'd lost my mind. Good. We understand each other. 2 months later, I stood in Heathrow Airport with Apollo in a carrier, Allison beside me, and 2 suitcases containing everything I needed for this next chapter. No drama, no last-minute revelations. No one asking me to wait while they sorted out their past. As we rode the tube into the city, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I almost deleted it without looking, but something made me check. It was Monica. I thought you should know. Jessica got engaged. To Ryan. She seems happy, but she asked about you last week. Said she wonders if you ever think about her. I showed the message to Allison. Are you going to respond? She asked. No. I deleted it and put my phone away. I stopped thinking about her the moment I walked through security. Do you ever regret it? Walking away like that? I looked at her. At this woman who'd been honest and direct from day 1, who'd asked me to build a life with her without games or manipulation, who understood that love wasn't about grand gestures, but daily choices. Not for a single second. London suited me. The firm's international office was more dynamic than the New York branch, and I found myself working on projects across 3 continents. Allison's startup succeeded beyond expectations, and within a year, she was being featured in tech publications as one of the rising stars in AI development. We moved from a small flat in Shoreditch to a townhouse in Notting Hill with a garden for Apollo. We traveled constantly, weekends in Paris, long weekends in Prague, a month exploring Japan when we both took extended leave. No trip was tainted by unfinished business or ghosts of relationships past. We were 2 people building something new, unburdened by should-haves and what-ifs. I thought about Jessica exactly 3 times after that message from Monica. The first time was when I received a promotion to managing director, and I realized that if I'd stayed with her, if I'd waited at that airport, swallowed my dignity, and pretended her choice was acceptable, I'd still be in my old job, in my old city, slowly suffocating under the weight of someone else's disrespect masquerading as love. The second time was when Allison and I got engaged in a small restaurant in Edinburgh, just the 2 of us and a ring I'd designed myself. I thought about how different this felt from my relationship with Jessica, how there was no anxiety, no second-guessing, no feeling like I needed to prove my worth or compete for attention. Just 2 people choosing each other, clearly and completely. The third time was 2 years after London, when I was back in New York for a conference. I was having drinks with old colleagues at a rooftop bar in Midtown when someone mentioned seeing Jessica at a local grocery store, looking tired and pushing a baby stroller while arguing on the phone. She'd married Ryan quickly, gotten pregnant almost immediately, and now was dealing with a husband who, according to mutual friends, was exactly as manipulative as he'd been when he'd lied about his mother's death. "Apparently he's jealous of everyone," my former colleague Kevin said. "Won't let her have male friends, monitors her phone, classic controlling behavior. Her friends barely see her anymore." "She always asks about you," someone else added. "Whenever your name comes up, she gets this look, like regret." "That's unfortunate," I said, the same thing I'd told Monica years ago. "Cold, man. 5 years together and that's all you've got?" I finished my drink and stood to leave. She had a choice. She made it. What happened after is just consequence. Flying back to London the next day, I sat in business class, a perk of my position, and reflected on the last 3 years. I'd bet. Doubled my salary, lived in one of the world's greatest cities, traveled to 15 countries, built a relationship based on mutual respect, and never once compromised my boundaries or dignity for someone who didn't value them. Jessica had chosen a moment of misplaced loyalty over 5 years of partnership. She'd chosen the comfort of being needed by someone broken over the stability of being loved by someone whole. And she'd paid for that choice with years of struggling, financially, emotionally, professionally. Now she was trapped in exactly the kind of relationship I'd saved myself from by walking away. I felt no satisfaction in her suffering. I simply recognized it as the natural result of her decision. When I got home, Allison was in the garden with Apollo, throwing a tennis ball in the fading evening light. She looked up when I came through the door and smiled. Not the performative smile of someone trying to prove their happiness, but the genuine contentment of someone who was exactly where they wanted to be. "How was New York?" she asked. "Productive? Good to be home." "Home." She tested the word. "Still feels weird calling London home?" "No." I kissed her and took the tennis ball from her hand, throwing it for Apollo. "Wherever you are is home. Wherever there's honesty and respect is home. Everything else is just geography." That night, lying in bed with Allison reading beside me and Apollo snoring at our feet, I thought about airports and choices and the moment your life splits into before and after. Some people spend years agonizing over decisions, weighing options, seeking advice, hoping the universe will make the choice for them. I'd learned that the best decisions are often the simplest ones. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. When someone asks you to compromise your dignity, don't. When someone walks away from you, let them go. Jessica had walked away from me at that airport. Even though I was standing still, she'd walked toward a man who'd manipulated her, away from a relationship that could have been her future. And I'd let her go without a fight, without begging, without negotiating away pieces of myself for the chance that she might realize her mistake. She did realize her mistake. But by then, I'd built a life where her realization was irrelevant. 3 years after the airport, Allison and I got married in a small ceremony in the Cotswolds with 20 close friends and Apollo as the ring bearer. No drama, no exes showing up, no last-minute doubts. Just 2 people who'd chosen each other every single day since they met, standing in front of the people they loved most, and promising to keep making that choice. During our honeymoon in New Zealand, sitting on a beach on the South Island watching the sunset, Allison asked me something she'd never asked before. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd waited? If she'd come back from talking to Ryan and you'd been there?" I thought about it, honestly. We would have gone to Barcelona. We would have had a terrible trip because I would have resented her and she would have resented me for making her feel guilty. We probably would have broken up anyway, but it would have been messy and drawn out. I would have wasted another 6 months or a year hoping she'd change, and she would have felt like she'd given something up for me. Neither of us would have been happy. No regrets? My only regret is that I didn't see who she was sooner. But I'm grateful I saw it when I did, and that I had the courage to act on it. She leaned against my shoulder. I love that about you. You're not cruel, but you're clear. You don't play games. Life's too short for games. We get one chance to build the life we want. Why waste it on people who don't value us? Some people would say that's harsh. That love means second chances. Love also means having enough self-respect to walk away when you're not being treated right. Jessica taught me that. I'm grateful for the lesson, even if I'm not grateful for how I learned it. We watched the sun sink into the ocean, turning the sky orange and pink and purple. Tomorrow we'd drive to Queenstown, then fly to Australia for the second half of our honeymoon. Next month we'd return to London, and our jobs and Apollo, and the life we'd built together. A life based on mutual respect, clear communication, and the understanding that we chose each other, not because we needed each other to be complete, but because we wanted to share our completeness with someone who valued it. Somewhere back in the States, Jessica was living with the consequences of her choice. I hoped, genuinely, that she'd find some measure of happiness, or at least peace. But her happiness, or lack thereof, had nothing to do with me anymore. She was a person I used to know, a chapter in my story that was finished. I was the protagonist of my own life, and I'd learned the most important lesson any protagonist can: learn. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away, not in anger, not in drama, but in clarity. Understanding your worth and refusing to negotiate it for anyone. Jessica had left me at the airport that day, even though she'd been the one to walk away. And I'd flown toward a life that was better than anything we could have built together. That was the real story. Not the betrayal, not the dramatic exit, but what came after. The life I built when I stopped waiting for someone to choose me and started choosing myself. As Allison and I walked back to our hotel hand in hand, I realized I hadn't thought about that airport in months. It wasn't a wound anymore, not even a scar, just something that had happened to someone I used to be, in a life I'd left behind when I walked through security and never looked back. And I'd never been happier.